when you are, okay?
All right.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Knights of the Frozen Throne card review for Arena. This is Adwictum.
This is Merps. Welcome, welcome. Hopefully you have the next 4 hours or so.
4 hours, yeah, right. You know, people actually can see how long each of these are by the time they watch this on YouTube.
Oh, so they can see how wrong we were.
Yeah, they can see that it's been 7 hours,
2 hours
and it's actually going to end at like 4 a.m. So this is like 9:30 when we're starting on the dot because we're on time.
Yeah. So anyways, we are about to run through all of the cards that are coming up tomorrow, or I guess today, if you're from the future. And we will score the cards and also tell you about how we think the meta will shape up or shape out. One of those.
It's going to shake because the meta is going to move. So the first things first, we are not using our site right now. So if you don't know who we are and you're just watching this for whatever reason, we're the Grinning Goat. Merps here is just coming off of being #1 in a arena leaderboard, which is pretty nice. And we've been doing this now for like almost 3 years now. So we sort of know what we're talking about, and we have some hits and we have some misses, but I think usually we're like 90-95% at least within like a few points of the correct final valuation on these cards. So I think we have a pretty good track record, and it's Arena, right? Like, things change, things move around, the meta changes, but it's all in a very predictable way because you don't just get a deck that comes in and ruins everything, right? Like in Constructed, if a new archetype comes out or a new type of deck comes out and becomes popular, well, now the whole meta's changing. You don't know what's good or bad or anything like anymore, right? The world goes upside down easily. In Arena, it's much more stable. You can see what cards are entering. It's randomly given to you. You know what percentage each cards are by like how good they are. So we can reasonably make predictions, not just of how good each card is going to be, but also of what the meta is going to be like.
Yep, and we have done this for basically every single expansion that I can remember. Each time it kills me a little bit inside, probably reduces my life expectancy, but we hope that we are bringing you some valuable information, and it'll give you guys a jump start on your arenas from day one.
Yeah, if you're playing the arena, just put this on the side and keep playing. This is the official Grinning Goat Knights of the Frozen Throne. I'm going to say KFT from now on because it's a mouthful. Arena card review, and we're going to kick it off with the first theme. Like, if you guys watch this a lot, you know that I like to pick 4 themes for each expansion that will guide where the meta's heading. And if you don't think the meta's going to change too much, either because you think the cards are not powerful enough, or you think there's one really powerful card, hint, hint, it's the bone mare on the top left here, that's going to dominate the meta and nothing else matters, you know, like Firelands Portal and Karazhan, it's usually not true. It's usually a combination of a lot of factors. And the biggest change, I think, in this one from Un'Goro is size-wise. We all know Un'Goro brought in Standard into Arena, or moved to the next like era and dropped 3 expansions and created its own expansion. So therefore, everyone knew it was going to be a big change. This time, I think people are less, I guess, like loud about how much of a change is happening. But I ran some math on the numbers, and because the classic sets and older sets have more commons and neutrals than they do, and more, commons and neutrals and rares than newer sets and expansions, actually 33% more cards are going to be added into the Arena draft pool if you go by drafting odds. So that means literally a fourth of your cards that you're going to be offered are going to be from KFT. So if you don't think this is going to have a ridiculously huge impact on the meta, I mean, you know, I would study math a little bit more. So that's the intro. Step 1, learn math. Step 2, what is the actual change that's going to happen? The first actual change that's going to happen, and we've talked about this on the LifeForge 2 episodes running now because it was kind of obvious from the very beginning, is reward the board. And what I mean by this, Merps, you want to talk? You want to say something? You seem to be gesturing a lot.
I like it. No. I think it gives the complete picture. Okay, but it's like you're talking and I'm giving the interpretive dance, right? So
I thought you were like that sign language person that's like on the corner of the news broadcast.
No. All right, interpretive dance,
Okay.
much better.
Okay, well, you interpretive dance rewarding the board. Okay,
Right.
3.
Reward the board.
Oh,
Look,
I'll
if you guys
dance it.
if you guys have played the arena, you know that you win and you lose based on board presence. You know, there are times definitely in which you have the mage, you know, fireball to the face and then pyroblast you to the face. That is extremely rare. The arena is won and lost on the board. Now, when we say reward the board, you will see in KFT mechanics and cards that help you or reward you for being on the board and keeping the board. And they reward you in sort of strange ways that we haven't seen before, and also very familiar ways, as in you get more tempo for having tempo. You get more cards for having tempo on the board as well. And this is something that you see in a lot of cards, and especially a lot of powerful neutral cards. So reward the board is a big theme that you will see in the new expansion.
Yeah, and to give you an idea of how big this is, it's nice to know that it's big, but here's exactly how big it is. There are 8 neutral / rares in KFT coming up that will buff the board. 8 of them. The number of cards that will reward the board, meaning like buff itself, you know, Cult Master, any of that, in previous sets, all of them added together for standard, is 13. So we're getting 8 this expansion, and we have 13 already. And some of them are in classic sets, which get offering rate, like, you know, which get less offering rates. And all of the ones in this set are going to get an offering bonus of plus 100%, because that's what Blizzard does to the new expansion. So really, this set is doing ridiculous things to the ability for neutral cards to buff. Remember that we said... Remember...
Okay, good. You're still alive. Look, don't worry.
I'm drinking this Coke Zero, a rare Coke Zero nowadays.
Oh, okay.
And
okay.
and it got to me. Okay, so back to what I was saying. The existing card pool is 8 times the size of the new card pool, but the new card pool has 8 neutral common rares, and the existing card pool only has 13. We were actually expecting, if the odds were even, 2 neutral board buffs, and instead we have 8. So that is a huge uptick. This is not just like us seeing, you know, Bone Mare and saying like, oh, Bone Mare is going to dominate the meta. This is actually like a whole lot of cards. Some of them good, some of them not as good. So yeah, so reward the board is going to happen, and it's going to stand in stark contrast to the other type of play that we've been seeing. So here's the second theme, which is I called it Fat Lives. I know you can't tell if it's Fat Lives or Fat Lives. I didn't mean for it to be Fat Lives. So fatties, like your Ultrasaurs or whatever, they don't usually live very often in Ungoro. There's a lot of spells. In 7.1 in March, Blizzard introduced the spell bonus, and then in June they have a weapon bonus. Just a lot of removals happening on the board. And when there's a lot of removals happening on the board, it's really tough for you to play one giant minion, right? Because then it gets removed and you lose a lot of tempo. So this is not going to be as much of a problem as it is in previous expansions, because in KFT there are no large removals. There are very, very few unconditional large removals, and by very, very few, I mean like actually 0. The only true hard removal there is in this entire set is Embrace Darkness, and that is a priest card, and it has a downside of not being able to destroy / steal the minion until it is the next turn, so you can trade the minion too. So it's even kind of conditional. Like Warlock gets a hard removal that kills a random minion, and you have to kill your own minion with it too. Like there's like it's a really bad set when it comes to like removals. And when I say big removal, I don't mean meteors and polymorph necessarily. Nothing even deals more than 3 damage. 3 damage. So it's not even like fat lives, like Yetis live. Like mid stuff lives. Like small minions by Ungoro standards live.
Right. And this goes with the Blizzard philosophy and sort of thinking that they've had for a long time, in which after the very early expansions, they were like, wow, it feels really bad whenever you devote like many turns and like many cards and a lot of mana, and then your opponent just like plays a card and erases everything, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah. So then they printed Primordial Drake because they have learned
Meteor.
so many lessons. Yeah.
Right. So Ungoro was actually pretty surprising when they did that. And this expansion, KFT, really goes back to that philosophy that they've been preaching for a while, where they were just like, you know, that doesn't make sense. And Blizzard has always been a company that wants people to sort of feel good about playing this game, right? Like they don't want, this is why they got rid of a lot of cards that literally, you know, manipulated your opponent's hands and did all of that stuff. So yeah, we see the design philosophy here, like clear and present. It's just like, we want to reward people for playing these big stuff, and we don't want like 3 mana and 1 card from the other side to just automatically erase 10 mana from your side.
Yeah, and so, you know, fatties are going to live now, and there's a lot of fatties coming in Ungoro, and they used to not be terribly good despite being super overstated because they would die to all these removals. And now all the removals that are hard removals have a lot of conditions attached to it. Yeah, and it's the new thing. So what happens instead, right? Merps talks about getting onto the board, and it is true. Comebacks onto the board now happen on the board. Like before, you would get initiative on the board through your board clears, right? Especially double-sided board clears. That was an easy and high-tempo way to get back on the board, right? You Volcano, and then all of a sudden you're on the board. Why? Because you dealt 15 damage to your opponent's minions if you didn't have any minions, or if you had enough minions to trade into your opponent's minions. And it was super efficient. Still is super efficient. But normally, the only way you can come back on the board from a board position is to use stealth, right? You play stealth minions, they don't get removed, then you can use your stealth minions to do things. But Ungoro introduces a bunch of new things. For one...
Wait, KFT?
Sorry, KFT introduced a bunch of new ones.
Okay, good.
I'm living in the old Ungoro world, so...
Guys, Nax is out, by the way. Anyways, go on.
So there's 4 multi-taunts that were introduced in this expansion alone. And multi-taunts are super rare, usually. And I'm not even including a Bolvar here, which is a legendary. But just 4 regular multi-taunts, including one of them in neutral. The Sarin Chain Gang. Which is a rare card that brings Spirit Wolves to neutral. Saronite Chain Gang. So that's one way to come. Another way is freezes. You freeze a minion, you put something else on the board that eats the minion your opponent put out, and now you're back on the board, right? This is a very big freeze expansion for Shaman and Mage. And there's even a new mechanic introduced that I don't know. I don't think it's going to be too good, but it's like the death rattles that trigger on your opponent's turn. So you have these cards like Vryghoul down here, where if it's your opponent's turn, summon a 2/2 Ghoul. It's a 3 mana 3/1, and if it's your opponent's turn, you summon a 2/2 Ghoul. If it dies on your turn, if you are the ones that uses the initiative, you get nothing. But then you dealt 3 damage. If it's your opponent's turn, they have to take care of a 2/2. So kind of a interesting mechanic, right? Because it disincentivizes your opponents from hitting the board. Also, death rattles in general are a thing, and that also disincentivizes your opponent from clearing the board. So that's kind of the way that that KFT tries to give you a comeback mechanism. Now, as we know, generally, it's not as effective as a Primordial Drake, but that's kind of a good thing. Because this goes with rewarding the board, right? Like, you want to actually reward the player who is better enough to actually be on the board. That is generally a good philosophy. So if you want to give people the ability to snowball off something, you should at least be the person who's winning the game, right? Like, if you're caring about a game of skill. Primordial Drake is great and all, but it rewards the person who's, like, off the board and losing. That has that like blue shell effect from Mario Kart, which is not what you generally want in a skill game, right? Okay.
Good reference.
So that's Fat Lives Fat Lives. And our third theme, which I suspected and I brought up in the last Lightforge as something I'm really watching out for. It is the 2-drop apocalypse is coming. I mean, it's come. It's going to come tomorrow. Whenever KFT comes out, there's no longer going to be 2-drops. Remember what I said? KFT cards are going to be a quarter of all the cards you're offered. A quarter of all the cards you're offered. And you know how many 2-drops are in KFT?
By the way, okay, I'm going to stop you right there. You asked me to spell drop apocalypse. I did that for you, and then you spelled it wrong.
Oh crap, I did spell it wrong.
By the way, the title meta is terrible, okay? You did not run these titles or the title of these themes by me, and they're interesting to say the least, okay? Let's hope our card ratings are better than our titles. Anyways,
okay.
Tell us about 2-drops, Advita.
Well, the answer to my question that I was hoping you would have provided was 1. There's 1 neutral 2-drop. Exactly 1 neutral 2-drop in KFT. And you know how many neutral 2-drops there were in Un'Goro? Like 2-drops and 1-drops that were viable? There were 9. So we're going from 9 to 2, and 9 was already a step down from what Classic offered. So we were already in a place where there weren't a lot of 2-drops, and then we got a lot worse. Not even a little worse, a lot worse. So you're going to see a lot of inconsistent curves going on here. And also, just in case you're thinking, oh, but class cards are going to make up for it. Un'Goro had 15 class 1 to 2 drops that were like actually like, you know, halfway decent at least. And KFT has 6. And they have the same number of cards. So this is a huge step down in your 1 and 2 curve. And it's going to be very noticeable, and you're going to have trouble curving out. So before we even get to these classes, I want to focus a little bit on which classes can. I think it's a pretty obvious thing where you can't go aggro if you don't have 2-drops. Fair?
Fair.
And so some classes that really don't have 2-drops really can't go aggro. It just will not work. And one of those classes is a class that actually used to be pretty good at going aggro, and it is the Shaman. The Shaman has 1 class 2-drop in this expansion, and a total number of 2.5, 0.5 being the epic card, 2-drops in its entire collection. That is a total of 4.5. Warlock, Mage, Druid, Priest, and Warrior are in the 8 to 6 range, which is like, you don't really get too much of a bonus. You're probably like, it's going to be risky for you to try to try to draft aggro. But if your deck is already trending aggro, if you get a couple good 2-drops in the early going, you can go aggro and it won't be a problem. And then you have the classes on top, which is Rogue, Hunter, and Paladin. And they have a total of, like, Rogue has infinite 2-drops, right? Because of the hero power. But yeah, they also have 7.5, just like actual 1 and 2-drops on top of that. Hunters have 12.5. And Paladins have 11.5. So they have a lot, and they can really get it going. So they're classes that can still be aggro, like almost from any place in the draft. And you may be wondering, well, okay, maybe I don't play aggro. Maybe I can also play control. What do I care about this? Well, one, these are expectations of how you should mulligan, for example, against these classes. Like, really try to mulligan aggressively against Paladins, Hunters, and Rogues. And two, if you're trying to reward the board, you need to get on the board, because you don't get rewarded if the game is rewarding the board and you don't have the board. And you can't get the board unless you get on the board. So by this excellent deduction, you need to get on the board. And 2-drops help you do that more than anything else, at least in the first half of the game. So Paladins, despite getting kind of like very iffy cards for most of their cards, are actually still in a very good spot. And Rogues and Hunters are still in very good spots to really take advantage of this upcoming reward the board meta.
Yeah, I think so. And this is something like a theme that you will see probably in every single preview. We've certainly had it in Un'Goro, right? And just because sort of the 1 and the 2 spots are so important, just based on the game that Hearthstone is, right? Like, where you start dictates the speed of the game, and it dictates like how you draft. Just, you know, like, there is no snowball without the small snowball, right? Like, you know, if you can't start the snowball, there is no snowball. So this is a theme that might be one of the most important, and you will see it in like every expansion.
Wise words. To have a snowball, you need to start a snowball.
Oh, I know. I know.
All right, so that's kind of the analysis of the drop curve. If you want to know how the other curves are, I didn't do too deep of analysis of the other curves, but 3-drops look really healthy still. Ungoro have plenty of 3-drops. KFT has plenty of 3-drops. A lot of them are good. We're still going to do fine there. So the game will definitely start by 3. No one's in danger of not getting enough 3-drops. And in fact, one of the cool things that we did to our tier list is we realized the importance of having a good 3-drop, because on turn 2 you can coin into 2 3-drops even if you don't have 2-drops at all. And your 3-drops are very much likely going to match up with your opponent's 3-drops and not their 2-drops. So the 3-drops that are really good, right? So those 3-drops that define your ability to get on the board all had their scores increased, and your crappy 3-drops, like a 3-3 for example, they had their scores decreased. And it wasn't like I went into our algorithm and like did that. I just kind of told it what cards are in the meta, and it told me, hey, these cards are going to get better just purely based on curve considerations because we're matching cards up on the board, and these cards are going to get worse. And it matched my expectations that 3-3s are going to not be as good as they used to be. And it's not like they were ever good, but they were like okay in Ungoro. You played a 3-3, you were okay, right? They're not going to be as okay anymore because 3-drops are rising in power and becoming more important. So that's what happens in a 2-drop apocalypse. The next one over is how your game starts. So 3-drops, very important. It's not that you won't get enough, but you want the good ones. So finally, and I'm going to let you take the lead on that one because I feel like I'm monopolizing the conversation, and you are the #1 arena player in NA. So
I am.
Numero uno. Answer this question. Blizzard has done something to the offering rates. We're not exactly sure what. They didn't really tell us what, but it has something to do with the first 2 cards that you're being offered having higher synergy chances than a normal, offering.
Right. And this is something that we still don't have all the information about, but the first couple
I like how you said still, as if we're getting the information.
Well, I'm hopeful, right? The first couple of picks in your arena draft will be synergy based, and basically what it means is these are going to be cards that, for example, either buff beasts or need beasts. Pirate synergies, right? Murloc synergies. I haven't played the arena myself since they implemented the changes, but I've watched some streams, and just from what I've read, they'll offer you stuff like Murloc War Leader. They'll offer you stuff like Mark of Yasharaj, right? If you're
Kazakus. That's a big one.
Kazakus is a big one as well, and it's another change that, look, I don't love, especially the fact that they put it at the beginning of the draft, right? Because it has no bearing so far that we know. The cards that you pick at the beginning have no bearing on what you get.
That's confirmed. That's confirmed by Blizzard and Reddit.
It's been confirmed. I mean, sure. They've also confirmed other stuff.
That's true. They've confirmed plenty of things that aren't actually true.
Exactly accurate. But as of right now, the information we have is that, if you pick Murloc War Leader with the quote synergy pick on the first one, it's not like you're going to get more Murlocs later on. The game won't identify that. So Blizzard is kind of just forcing synergies on you and saying, like, good luck, bro. Hope you get these synergies that you picked. And you have to pick between synergies, right? It's like, do I go for dragons? Do I go for Murlocs? Do I go for beasts? Do I go for pirates? Who knows, man?
Yeah. I will say this, though. It's actually, so the impact is going to be pretty big on your actual draft because it is the first card and then you can match synergies afterwards, right? That's the whole point of making the first couple cards. So if you get like Nazath, then you can pick more Death Rattles or whatever. But also, a third of your legendaries come from your first 2 picks. Because, or like not quite a third, but like very close to a third, because your first pick is one of the few picks that's actually guaranteed to be a rare. So a large percentage of your legendaries will come from that pick, and those legendaries are like in this one pool So you're going to see a lot of Kazakuses, in the meta from now on. And again, that's not good because Kazakus wins games without you doing much else. So it's not a very exciting thing to see in the arena. But overall, I think I actually like this change. I'm probably not going to like how they implemented it because I'm sure their list of like high synergy cards is like Blubber Baron and other things that's like not actually.
Blubber Baron is one of the cards that is offered as a synergy
really?
choice. Yeah, yep, it is. It's been confirmed that Blubber Baron is one of them.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, that's exactly the problem, is that Blizzard is going to think, Blubber Baron, what a high synergy card. In fact, it sucks so much without synergy. But what they're actually saying is, if you have enough synergies, Blubber Baron's like, okay. It's not the same as like starting with Nazoth and then building a deck on it, which feels exciting. It's more like, pick Blubber Baron and hope for the best. I have a theory that this is coming ahead of KFT for a very specific reason. Well, two specific reasons. One, they released all these Prince cards, right? That require you to have no 2, no 3, or no 4 drops. They're legendary. No one's going to play them. They're going to suck. But if you were offered a 4/4 versus a bunch of really crappy synergy-only cards, you may pick it. And then, if 10 cards down the road you still don't have any 4-mana cards, you may think, well, maybe the synergy's worth it and I'll just avoid some 4-mana cards. And all of a sudden, this totally worthless legendary is seeing some action. That's one theory. And
I can see that.
Yeah, right? Like, I think that's totally possible because they really printed some bad... Like, those are weird cards. I don't know. And we'll go over them later on. Or... You know, you can actually see them right here and how weird they are. There's Prince Valanar. If your deck has no 4-cost cards, gain lifesteal and taunt, which is not like the most game-winning thing ever for not allowing you to include 4-drops in your entire deck. But okay, the other theory that I have is that because Jade has no offering bonus in Arena, and Elementals have no offering bonus in Arena, and KFT has no tribal or any kind of like real true synergy type things, like a little bit minor death rattle synergy, and that's it. What they wanted to do is make sure that you still see some Jade decks in the arena, and that you still see some like elemental decks in the arena. And in order to do that, they thought, well, we're going to start you off with like your Blaze Callers and like your, you know, Jade Shurikens, and then you already have one to start, which makes your synergy more easy to build. You can like go down that path. And I don't really mind that, because otherwise it's true, right? Jades are basically give yourself a 1/1. And they've been like that, and they're going to get diluted even more. And Elementals, we have here in our tier list, like the big drops that Elementals have gotten since we removed the synergies and the number of Elementals. It's pretty bad. So yeah, so that's synergies. All right, and that's the KFT meta, guys. Let's wrap this up, Merps, and focus on what is really, really important in KFT in case people got lost in these. I know there's like many themes going on, like a total of 4, of which one of them is a question mark because we don't really know how it's going to play out yet or what Blizzard's actually doing with it. In KFT, this is exactly how you win. 3 steps. 1, if you are a class like Rogue, Hunter, or Paladin, definitely have enough 2-drops because that's your advantage. If you are not a shaman, you should still try to get as many 2-drops as you can unless your draft totally goes away from it. Because again, a lot of people won't, and you're at such a huge advantage if you do. You're at a huge advantage because the board is being rewarded. Once you build up your board, you can buff your board a lot with a lot of these neutral cards that everyone's going to get. And if you can buff your cards, you can eat an opponent minion and still stay on the board, and then you have even more board, and then you snowball out of that. So that's like all classes. So you start with 2-drops, then you snowball with buffs, and to cap it all off, in case you're worried about board clears, because you will have a lot of somewhat injured minions on the board and smaller minions if you go a little more aggressive, you can also drop some big minions out there without fear that they're going to be removed as much as before.
Yep. So what does KFT provide, right? You want to see like what the expansion is about as well, and what it takes away. Ungoro, we had a lot of, very powerful
Yeah, and I
minions,
think
but
that's
we
very
also,
important. I'm going to interrupt
yeah,
there. It takes away Ungoro. Ungoro, even at the end there, still had a 1.5 time offering bonus, and that's going away. So you're not just going to see less Ungoro cards because there's more. There's a whole set coming in. Like they're actually reducing the percentage of Ungoro cards.
right. So with Ungoro, we saw some powerful minions, but we also saw some very powerful comeback mechanics, right? And those are leaving the meta. So those are leaving, and now KFT is coming in and giving you lots of stuff that sort of snowball, right? Snowball, buff the board and everything. But it's sort of it's a double whammy in which you're removing the comeback mechanisms of Ungoro, and you're not adding any in KFT along with the offering bonus.
Mm-hmm.
So this just really means that you got to get on the board first, and once you have the board, it's so hard for your opponents.
Yeah.
It's we've moved away from the scary times of MSG and Ungoro, in which you're just like, oh man, I know the Abyssal Enforcer is coming, I know the Dragonfire Potion is coming, I know the Meteor is coming, and it's really tough. In KFT, those boogie cards, there are very powerful cards, but it's not like that category that I'm talking about. So get on the board, stay on the board, and win. That's basically it.
Yep. All right. Well, that's episode 1. Stick around. There's like at least 10, 15 more episodes coming. Who knows? Depending on how many sets of cards we review. I don't know the exact number. I think it's like 16 is what we have planned. We're going to do next kind of a overview of our tier list. This is not our tier list. This is Disguised Toast, a wonderful site that has a nicely formatted card reveal section that we're using for now, because our tier list is still being loaded. This is like fresh off the, I don't know what we do, fresh off the Lightforge, fresh out of the Lightforge.
Whatever.
Fresh from the Lightforge, these scores are going to come off, and we're going to review them here with you. So stick around and click over to watch the next episode after this. And I will leave you with a huge shout out to our patrons. Patreon.com/grinninggoat. You'll see the link at the bottom in the description. They have stuck with us for more than 2 years, helping us keep this thing going, put these things together, do what we really love to do within Hearthstone Arena. It really wouldn't be possible without them. And also a shout out, of course, to our Twitch subs who also contribute in the same way. And we'll give more shout outs once the tier list comes out on the people who helped put all that together. But for now, patrons, especially if you watch YouTube and you don't sub as a Twitch sub, that's a great way to support us. Any little bit will help. And yeah, thank you guys so much for allowing us to do this.
Next episode.